Today, the first 2 episodes of Star Wars Skeleton Crew drop on Disney+. I've been able to watch the first 3 episodes, so let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies and TV way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comments section. Let me know, what did you think about the first 2 episodes of Skeleton Crew, and give me that point of reference. How are you feeling about Star Wars in general these days, and what was your specific excitement level for Skeleton Crew? As for me, I've been very frustrated with recent Star Wars where there's just been a lot of disappointments. It's not that they're all bad, but a lot of them have not been nearly as good as they should be, so I go into a lot of these shows with a good bit of skepticism. When it comes to the Skeleton Crew, once again, a lot of mixed feelings in here because they said that they wanted to do kind of this coming of age story inspired by the 80s, and that was interesting to me. It's a different age perspective on the world of Star Wars, and the trailers for it, one of them kind of had me a little bit nervous. One of them I thought was pretty good. And that was how I was going into this. One more thing before we get started. 6 weeks back, I was actually able to go to Skywalker Ranch and Lucasfilm to learn how they worked on the movie Ultraman Rising. I did a couple different videos kind of chronicling the experience. So as a Star Wars fan, if you're interested in what it's like to visit Skywalker Ranch and Lucasfilm, be sure to check out those videos, and let's get started with the good. And I'll just cut right to the chase on this one. Skeleton Crew is off to a good start. As I mentioned before, I've seen the first 3 episodes, and I enjoyed all 3 episodes, and I thought they had something unique and different to offer without feeling like it compromised what I love about Star Wars and the world of Star Wars. Now, right off the bat, whenever this show was first announced, they described it as a galactic version of classic Amblin coming-of-age adventure films of the 80s. Now, I was born in 1981, so I was raised on all of those Amblin films, so that description immediately caught my attention. So the question is, would they be able to pull it off? And the show really does capture that vibe, and in certain ways that they try to emulate that, or will be mentioned at the negative side here. But if you look at what those Amblin adventure films did, Goonies, Explorers, E.T., they're adventures from the perspective of kids. So apply that to Star Wars, a Star Wars live action story from the perspective of these children. It's kids that talk like kids, but in the world of Star Wars. So you think, like, how do kids play? How do kids get educated in the world of Star Wars? And it plays that out. Even elements like single parents that were so prominent in those Amblin films and children of divorce, stuff like that. That's kind of the dynamics going on here. One of the ones that Amblin films I used to watch all the time on Saturday afternoons was The Explorers, where these kids build their own spaceship and take off into the sky and discover aliens. And there's that flavor in here of they find this spaceship and they go off on this adventure. And as they reference the Goonies in describing what they were trying to be like, all of that, they're all fair comparisons. That is very much the vibe that this TV show has. And I've mentioned before that I feel like Star Wars thrives when it pulls in outside influences. And one of the problems with a lot of modern Star Wars is that it has this creative inbreeding where it just feels like modern Star Wars is inspired by other Star Wars. With this, they're looking at these Amblin films. That's something different. The other big influence here is that this is very much a pirate story. Now, Goonies has that pirate element in it, but beyond that, this just feels like a pirate story. Even from the introduction, it makes it clear that we're dealing with pirates in the world of Star Wars, and this show, if you kind of look at what it is, it's Star Wars plus Amblin plus Treasure Island. And then we're all about trying to find treasure and following maps to different places. And that gives it a different vibe. It's compatible with Star Wars. It's not breaking the lore, but it's a different story template. And being that it's from the perspective of kids, it's a different perspective on this world. And that's what I want more of with my Star Wars. Not just rehashing the past, not just member berries and being like, hey, remember Clone Wars? Hey, remember Rebels? Hey, remember Luke Skywalker? No, let's play around in the world of Star Wars while telling different types of stories, pulling from different genres. Other thing that was very unexpected in here is there's some mystery tied to the planet that these kids come from in a way that I just really wasn't expecting. Even as the synopsis was put out there of these kids get in a spaceship and they get lost and they can't get back home, I was like, how is that going to work? And it goes into this mystery of kind of what this planet is that you're actually curious about it. It makes the journey home that much more compelling and adds all these extra layers to it and informs you about everything you see at the beginning with the setup of the characters, their family dynamics, what you're learning, and you go, oh, what does all of this mean? Which, it's that extra flavor that didn't know that I wanted out of this show. Today's video is sponsored by MeUndies. Holiday season is upon us, and MeUndies is the best brand I've found for unbelievable comfort. They've got you covered so you can be your coziest self. From lounge pants to hoodies, sweatpants, and onesies, MeUndies is so much more than just an underwear brand. And since the holidays are here, what could be a better gift for everyone on your list than the gift of comfort from MeUndies? MeUndies has a cut for everyone with over 20 different styles in hundreds of different colors and prints. My wife's favorite movie is a shark movie, so I got these shark patterned undies. So of course my wife loved them. MeUndies' signature super soft micro module fabric is breathable, stretchy, and so comfortable, making it ideal for all day wear. And during the holiday season where I'm just laying around, this is the comfort level that I want. If you're not happy with your first pair of undies, it's on MeUndies. Knock out all of your holiday gifting needs today with MeUndies. To get exclusive holiday deals and savings all month long, go to MeUndies.com/Sean Chandler. Enter promo code Sean Chandler. That's MeUndies.com/Sean Chandler, code Sean Chandler. MeUndies, comfort from the outside in. As for the characters, the kids are charming. They have a youthful energy to them. Each of them kind of brings in a different energy. You have the one that's a little bit meaner but intelligent. You have the one that wants to go off on the adventure, the one that's cautious. So they kind of bring all those different perspectives together and they work well together. And of course, Jude Law is fun. Of course, he's great on screen, and he kind of brings that, movie star gravitas to it with kind of these fresh new faces from the kids. His character's kind of mysterious. You don't know exactly what's kind of going on with him, where he's got some good, he's got some not so good in there. That right mix of, a good old Star Wars scoundrel, but not just a Han Solo clone. So that sort of character, which is just a nice, fun blend. And the other kind of big category here that was something that was a positive right out of the gate is that the way that this show discusses the Jedi is the way that I think about the Jedi, the way that I grew up thinking about the Jedi, which is, at least our lead character in here, just views the Jedi as heroes and idolizes them. And that kind of sets him off on this adventure. He wants to be a Jedi. That's the way that so many of us grew up watching Star Wars, wanting to be a Jedi. And this kid in that world has that sort of mindset as well. And it feels strange to mention that, but there's been a number of Star Wars shows and movies that kind of have the opposite perspective. The Acolyte kind of exists to say the Jedi suck and they're corrupt. Last Jedi, that's the whole point, was Last Jedi because the Jedi suck and they're corrupt. And of course, the prequels showed the faults of the Jedi, and Clone Wars expanded on those faults of the Jedi, but there were heroes in there. They had a good, noble purpose, they just lost their way. And so when you have Star Wars shows that treat the Jedi is, oh, they suck, they're garbage. And they always were. I don't like that. There's a difference between nuance and showing they're not perfect and actively presenting them as wholly corrupt and bad organizations where the Jedi are essentially the villains of their own show. Maybe a show recently did that, and I didn't particularly care for it. And the final positive in here that I really wanted to discuss is that my kids liked it. And that's a big deal. That Star Wars is so important to me. The Mandalorian was the first show ever that both I was excited for and my son was excited for. And for the first 2 seasons, it was like this weekly event where we'd wake up early before the kids would go to school. We'd watch the first episode, we'd watch the new episode of the show. And it was such a big deal for our family. And then over the last 5 years, that stopped being a thing. And not that my son has stopped liking Star Wars. Over the summer, my son and I, we went to go see both a movie marathon, watching all of 3 prequels in a row and all 3 of the original trilogy in a row in a single day, 2 different weekends where we did that. He still loves Star Wars, but he didn't want to watch The Acolyte. He didn't care for Ahsoka. Didn't think Mandalorian in season 3 was nearly as good. And he wasn't interested in Andor at all, which broke my heart. But he was fully invested in this, like totally locked in watching it. And when the first episode ended, my 6-year-old daughter said, "Can we watch the next one?" And when the 3rd episode ended, my wife, who, she likes Star Wars, but she's not one of us that's obsessed with Star Wars, she's like, "Oh, do we have any more that we can watch?" My whole family is enjoying a Star Wars show together. That is such a big deal to me. And I will say this, like, it is more kiddie. It's a more kiddie show. It's younger. It's a kid's perspective. So, of course, it's a little bit more kiddie. But George Lucas has said Star Wars has always been for 12-year-olds.
One of the reasons why I made Star Wars is it's made for 12-year-olds. It appeals to everybody, but it was still made for 12-year-olds.
We were all 12 once.
And I mention that because sometimes with shows like this, if you go in thinking, oh, I grew up watching The Goonies, and you're now late 20s, 30s, 40s, or whatever, sometimes a show that's made for modern day 12-year-olds, it can just feel too kiddie. And so I think there's a difference between, it's not for me anymore. It's not the same thing as this is bad. Those are different things. As for me, someone that's been pretty skeptical about Star Wars in general recently, and someone that wasn't fully convinced by the trailers here, I think that they actually did a really good job, or at least the first 3 episodes won me over and got my family excited for more. There's more to say here. Let's move on to the mixed aspects of the show. And this isn't a good or a bad thing. It's just a question that I've already seen on the internet. What Star Wars do you need to watch before watching Skeleton Crew? Simple answer, it's a good standalone Star Wars show. It is set after Return of the Jedi, and so having that knowledge informs you of kind of the world of Star Wars, where the story takes place. But 3 episodes in, there's absolutely no connections to Ahsoka, to Mandalorian, to Book of Boba Fett. And so you don't need to watch any of those shows. Don't need to watch The Acolyte. But even my 6-year-old that, she's seen Star Wars before, doesn't really know anything, she could fully watch and enjoy the show because it's designed as this on-ramp to the world of Star Wars from the perspective of these children that go off on this adventure. So if you've watched everything Star Wars, it will inform you a little bit more of little things, and you'll get more out of the little Easter eggs and details in here. But it works entirely if you're brand new to the world of Star Wars, and you don't need to do any homework before watching this show. From there, let's move on to the bad. And most of the bad here were things that I noticed in the trailer that caused me concern. One of them is certain shots just either looked kind of cheap, or they looked like you're watching a cutscene for a ride at an amusement park. It just had a certain cosplay look to it, a fan film look to it. Generally speaking, bad VFX don't ruin a movie or TV show for me. But when you're dealing with a Disney production from Lucasfilm and all the resources that they have available to them, you just kind of expect things to look better. Other thing that really bothered me in the trailer, as well as in the first episode in particular, is that they make this planet that the kids are from look way too much like the suburbs. That one of the things about Star Wars and the world building is that it just always felt like you were off a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. And you go into this and it looks like the suburbs, except with floating cars. And they go down to sit to eat breakfast and they pour cereal like in the 80s out of Tupperware, except the milk is blue. And so that stuff where Star Wars always took you off to this other place and where everything was a little bit different, and this felt very same. I don't want Star Wars in that sense, the production design, to remind me of my own childhood. Like the kids riding school buses, speeders just being bikes. Like it was just too one-to-one similar to my own childhood and not enough, let's go off to this far off distant world of Star Wars. Final, just big kind of concern I have with all these shows is that almost all of them start with something that's a little bit interesting. A lot of these Disney Plus shows, Star Wars, Marvel, there's always something in the first couple episodes where I go, that's kind of interesting. That tickles my brain a little bit. And then somewhere in the middle, it loses me. It feels stretched out, goes off the rails. And by the end of it, you're like, oh no, what just happened? Why did you waste that? And the fact that I went, oh man, this started off strong. I'm still nervous it's going to go off the rails because they've just done that so many times. Real quick, before I give you my final thoughts, be sure to join me down below in the comments section. Let me know, what did you think about the first 2 episodes of Skeleton Crew? Remember, I have seen 3 episodes, so I'm 1 episode ahead of you. Also, I've talked about all things Star Wars many times before. You could check all that stuff out in this playlist right up here. But also remember, I visited Lucasfilm as well as Skywalker Ranch just 6 weeks ago, and I did a vlog kind of discussing that whole experience. You can check that out right up here as well. If you're a Lucasfilm Star Wars fan, highly recommend checking that out. As someone that went into Skeleton Crew with a number of concerns, I really enjoyed the first 3 episodes. It was something refreshing. It was familiar, but it was different enough, pulling in those outside influences and just being charming. More importantly, my kids and wife also enjoyed it. And so for me, that's a big win that we can watch Star Wars together again. Be sure to let me know what you thought down below in the comment section. Check out that Skywalker Ranch Lucasfilm vlog right over there. Check out my other Star Wars videos right over there. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies and TV too much. Bye-bye.